Hi. Oh no, I just started to film and my camera's gonna die. Okay, we'll see how far we can go, but first of all, I just knitted this. I'm very happy with it. Yeah. Yes, anyway, so there we go. I'm gonna try and do the tag that Biblia Ghoul made based off Beyonce's album Renaissance. So here we go. The first question is, or like the first song, track, whatever, is I'm That Girl, which is a new release or a book you're looking forward to reading. So I went for, actually I think I did pick two. One is Either Or by Elif Batuman, because I'm reading the idiot and I do want to keep reading, like I want to read the series. And it's actually like one of the reasons why I became much more like interested in reading the idiot, because I don't know, I think I like that's nice, series, but at the same time, like, I actually am really interested in how like contemporary novels or like non-genre novels become series versus like obviously like fantasy and sci-fi are both like major things that have series. Like, not that I'm against those kinds of series either, but just like I feel like it's very interesting when people make non-genre like literary fiction books series, I guess. I don't really know what I'm saying, but maybe that makes sense. I also did pick the new Samantha Shannon book that hasn't come out yet, and I think it's going to come out in 2023, which is called A Day of Fallen Night, and it is like a prequel, I believe, to The Priory of the Orange Tree. Wow, the birds are loud, sorry. But yeah, I'm really excited about that. I love The Priory of the Orange Tree, and I'm really excited to read the prequel / rest of the series. The next track is Cozy, a comfort read or a book that makes you feel comfortable in your skin. For this I picked Fair Play by Tove Jansson, which I have read. I did actually kind of, I guess, try to pick books that I have read fairly recently, partially because they're like more strong in my mind and it feels more kind of relevant to the recent release of Renaissance, I guess, Renaissance. Tove Jansson Fair Play is this lovely book about love and work and art and relationships and aging. Yeah, just like deep, profound love for each other in like a very deeply gay way. Yeah. For the track Alien Superstar, you choose like a sci-fi or fantasy read with bonus points for space or alien content, and I don't have any space or alien content except from Gideon the Ninth, but that's a bit boring to say. And also I don't really consider it particularly spacey. I think the second one is going to be way more spacey. So instead I went for like Aliens of the Sea, because I think there is something very like alien-y about the sea and about like the creatures in the sea, and then also kind of like about the sea as this like mother force, and then all of my like things that I'm interested in all kind of aligning. So I picked The Abyss Surrounds Us by Emily Skrutsky, which is like a YA novel and was a lot of fun. It is about these like large sea creatures and they bond to ships and to trainers, and the main character is like a trainer of one of them, and it's set in this like post-climate world, basically climate collapse world, flooded one, and it's about her and like pirates she meets, and it's gay. And also the other one I picked was The Grace Keepers, which also has kind of like this alien repro quality to it, which I also really loved. I did love it more than The Abyss Surrounds Us. And yeah, it's by Kirsty Logan, and it's about queerness and circuses, and it's quite like Angela Carter but in like much less of a intense and, I don't really want to say problematic way, but kind of problematic way, or like insensitive way maybe. That's not to say Angela Carter wasn't problematic, but I don't really like that as a framework for critique. Like, it's not particularly useful because it's so vague. But anyway, yeah, it's about like a bear girl called North and another girl called Callanish, and they're like a land dweller and a sea dweller, or a dampling respectively, because it's also in a flooded world, and I'd really recommend it. Cuff It, a book about going out and having fun with your friends. So I had a lot of trouble with this, like I'm not gonna lie to you. So I picked like Conversations with Friends, Sally Rooney. I don't think I read books where like people go out and have fun with their friends. And like obviously that, I guess it's a bit contentious to pick this one because yeah, but I was thinking specifically about like the stuff where they go to like the south of France or whatever, and they're having like a holiday and they're getting drunk there and kind of having fun, but they also do start off with like a night out. I think actually, I think it does fit. It's just like the vibe is maybe more like going out and having complicated and somewhat sad times with your friends rather than fun times. But maybe that's just representative of the going out with friends experience. Oh, this is inside out. Okay, well let's pretend that I didn't have this one the wrong way around. The next book is for the track Energy, which is a book with an iconic line or good writing. And for this I chose Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. And like, this both has like incredibly good writing. It's like luscious and vivid and just very good. I thought it was just like really fantastic and so compelling and like creative, or like, you know, it really evocative. That's the word I'm looking for, evocative. Yeah, I chose that. And obviously also it does have this like very, very iconic line, which is like, last night I dreamt I went to Manderley again. But the whole first chapter is honestly like one of the best openings of a novel of all time, I think, that I've ever read. Like, it's just so good. And yeah, I keep wanting to like reread it again and again whenever I think about it. So yeah, definitely that. Break My Soul is a book you'd like to unhaul. For this, like, I kind of struggled because I've been like kind of unhauling like as I go, so I don't really have any specifically that I can think of that I still own. But I have unhauled a couple books recently, including like Hamlet by Maggie O'Farrell, which it's not because I didn't like the book, but it's because I don't think I'll read it again and I didn't love it. And I also unhauled Bring Up the Bodies by Hilary Mantel because she sucks. For Church Girl, which is a book that makes you feel free in your mind, body or soul, I didn't have one, which really makes me consider what kinds of books I've been reading. Like, yeah, I just don't have one, and I don't know what to put here. I mean, what would you put? I'd love to hear your answers to this, because like, yeah, I just really struggled, like, I don't know. And I don't really want to put some like self-helpy book about trauma and healing, because it doesn't really feel like it made me feel free. It was like something that was really useful, but not in a kind of liberatory sense. Or maybe in a bit, but like not really, I think, for the quality or the essence of the song slash this prompt, like where it's like a really deep thing. I don't know if that makes sense. Sleepy editing me here to say, I do actually think maybe Metabolize If Able by Clay Add could work here, and also Revolutionary Letters by Diane de Prima. I haven't actually finished reading this, but it's a collection of her poetry, and I can't even read it quickly because like every poem makes me feel like so held and beautiful and like just nourished, I guess. Yeah, really nourished deeply in like the most wonderful way. So maybe those two. Although, yeah, one of them isn't actually read, and then the other one I did read quite a long time ago, so I guess that's why it didn't come to my mind. But I would still love to know your answers to this question. Like, it's a really interesting question. For the track Plastic Off the Sofa, a book about the complications of love. For this I chose Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Arnfield, which, yeah, I don't really want to go into so much, but I guess like the complications is that people change, and is that life happens, and is that people aren't in control even if they think they are, or, you know, but also that like love itself is just a complicated thing. Like, loving somebody is inherently complicated because you're loving a person and you're a person too, and that's just always going to be a complicated scenario, really. There's just like a lot of moving parts generally. Okay, for Virgo's Groove, a book that fits your sign. My sun is a Capricorn, obviously. I'm actually a double Capricorn, and then a Scorpio rising, which is why I'm like this. And I did struggle a lot with this. Hi, things definitely look different. It is what it is. We were on Virgo's Groove, and I said the only book that I could really think of that was like super Capricorn-y, which is my sign. I'm a double Capricorn. Yeah, and I was saying that Evelyn Hugo, Taylor Jenkins Reid, that book. Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, because she's like a massive Capricorn in that book. But I also kind of thought like Far From the Madding Crowd might be like kind of one, although I think it's a bit more Taurusy than Capricorn, but it's definitely big like earth energy. Yeah, I don't know, I'm not quite happy with my answers, but I just really couldn't think of like a Capricorn-y book, in part because I think some of the qualities that like people say are defining Capricorns aren't great, and aren't qualities that like as an anti-capitalist Capricorn I'm particularly interested in. But anyway, yeah, sorry, it's not a great answer, but it'll have to do. For the track Move is actually the only book that I currently have a physical copy nearby. Sorry, the prompt for this is a translated book or a remake retelling of a popular story. So I just went for the translated part. This isn't a remake of a popular story, although it does engage with like history, I guess. So actually, yeah, and it also, it in some ways a retelling of like Penelope in the Odyssey, in her making and remaking, or unmaking rather, of a funeral shroud for Odysseus's father, I believe it is. It's not actually for Odysseus. That's Threadripper by Amalia Smith, translated by Jennifer Russell from the Danish. And this is like a really interesting book. It has, so this page, for example, is page 68, and it's page 68 on this side and on this side. So it's telling this story concurrently, or simultaneously, I don't know if concurrently is the right word. And it's sort of more personal observations on one side, and on the other side it's more kind of research orientated, more like about history, about science. So this is the, you can't really see, but like this is the contents page, and this is called notes and this is called .txt, and on the notes side it just goes September 2017 for example, and then onwards about every 2 months apart. And then on the txt or .txt side it's part 1, and it has more kind of formal names like The Wavering Penelope, Ada's Algorithm, that kind of thing. And yeah, they're just like nicely sort of interspersed. They do reference each other. Sometimes in one side it will say like, oh, I found out about X, and then on the other side we'll have information more kind of in a more like informative register here. So like the loom is an ancient technology, that kind of thing. Whereas this is like, oh, I had a dream about blah blah blah, and I'm in Japan because I'm researching blah, and I went to the textile mill to try to get the colours right, and blah blah blah. So yeah, it wasn't like a great book, but I did really enjoy it, and I really liked how it experimented with form, because it is about forms and about textiles as technology, and then technology now and kind of the way that they are the same thing. And yeah, anyway, I feel like I talked about that one way more, but it's just, it is easier, isn't it, when you actually have a physical book, because you can look at it and really remember like what parts you read or like how you felt about it, and be like reminded of like the physical presence. Right, for the track Heated, a book that pissed you off. Recent books I have been annoyed by include Excellent Women by Barbara Pym, which I just thought was really bad, especially the ending. Well, the whole thing, honestly, it was just not good, and it was very racist and like so conservative in how it imagined spinster women could like function in society, and like how they should be supportive of men. And I also would say that The Ones Who Stay and Fight by N.K. Jemisin, which is a short story that I read, which is in response to Ursula K. Le Guin's short story, The Ones Who Walk Away from MLS. And yeah, I heard Books by Lanes talking about this, and I got really annoyed just hearing about it, and then I felt like it wasn't really fair of me to do that, so I read the story and I was just as annoyed. Like, it was just didn't understand Ursula K. Le Guin's story like at all. I thought it just made it feel kind of self-righteous and stuff, but it just, because it didn't fundamentally understand the story at all, it just didn't work at all. Like, it was just ridiculous. For thick, a big book, I chose Middlemarch, obviously, because it's about 800 pages and it's in 8 books, I think it is, and it's just a great book by George Eliot. I didn't say that. So it's a Victorian book from the 1870s, and I would really recommend it. I think it's a big book that's so worth reading, and yeah, I'm very glad to have finally read it. The next question or track is All Up in Your Mind, which is a book that made you think. I could definitely answer with Threadripper, although I think it made me think less than I thought it would actually, but but I think I decided to go with Stubborn Archivist. Maybe not so much as like a, oh, I can pinpoint the kinds of thoughts I had about it, but more like the experience of reading it made me more thoughtful and made me, in like an abstract sense, think about things, or kind of like reconsider things, or even like just, yeah, I don't know how to explain it. But anyway, Stubborn Archivist by Yara Rodriguez Fowler. Sorry, I didn't say that part. Which, yeah, I buddy read with Sian from Storytime earlier in the year. I think, you know, that's also why it's nice to do buddy reads. Although I think it kind of depends, because obviously sometimes you can read a book and be like, I have no thoughts about this book, like, but then sometimes when you are buddy reading with somebody, you can kind of point out things, and you then kind of think about it more because you're thinking about what you're going to say, or the other person is like, oh, I thought about this whilst reading it, or I noticed this about it. So anyway, that. For the track America Has a Problem, which is a book about your country's problems, I feel like not particularly equipped to answer this, but I guess I did think that Feminism Interrupted by Lola Olufemi might work for this. Yeah, I mean, there's lots of books that are like on my TBR that I feel like would fit this prompt, but I wanted to pick one that I had read. And I did also read Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race by Rennie Edo Lodge a couple years ago, so that kind of fits. I'm not especially happy with my answers here. You know, I mean, they're both great books, but it's more just like, I don't know, it just makes me feel like I should probably read more books like this, or I should probably actually get to the books that I put on my TBR that are about, you know, all the problems with the UK and, I mean, the world generally, but also it can be really good to be like very specific and know about stuff that's happening locally, rather than just kind of accepting this sort of more like generic and often quite like American approach to all sorts of things like politics and stuff like that. I think that happens quite like obviously with race specifically, but it happens with everything really. And you know, even things like abortion, people have no idea what abortion like laws or access is actually like in the UK, because they're so focused on America as this like big bad, which of course it is, but then, you know, they can lose sight of how shit the places that they are, and in this case the UK. So yeah, I don't really know if I have an answer for that, but like those two are some sort of gestures towards the problems with the place where I live. For Pure/Honey, the question is a book by a queer author or focuses on LGBTQ history/culture. And for this I chose Valentine Ackland, A Transgressive Life by Frances Bingham. And Frances is queer and it's also about a queer figure, so I felt like it really works because it's about queer history as well as poetry, so like queer literary culture. Valentine Ackland was like a lesbian from the 20th century basically. I think she died in 68 or something, maybe earlier actually, it might have been like 66, in the 60s. But she was like Valentine Ackland was a very like dedicated poet, wrote lots of different kinds of poetry, especially like poetry like of witness, of kind of like looking at the world and yeah, seeing it for what it is. She did convert to Catholicism. I can't remember if she then became a Quaker after that. I think she did, and I definitely think you can kind of read that in her poetry, like both the Catholicism and the Quakerism, but also like her political commitments especially come out in the Quakerism, I think. But yeah, so I would pick that book. I think it's a really lovely biography. I think it really works, and I think it's really lovely that Frances Bingham wrote it, who's also like a gender non-conforming lesbian, like butch. You just sort of feel like there's a sort of cross-historical recognition there, even if like Valentine Ackland, you know, isn't alive, and I think it's lovely. So yeah, I'd really recommend that. Then the last one is Summer Renaissance or Renaissance, and that's probably my favourite song from the album, although I do feel like with this album, I mean with lots of albums in general, but like some albums more than others, I do just like listen to it all in one go. So I do actually kind of find it hard to like distinguish which is my favourite song because I'm just like playing it all through. The prompt for this song is a summer book, which obviously, I see what you did there. And for that I kind of struggled a bit, but then I decided to go with Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen, because like it's kind of light and it's not like fluffy, but it does sort of treat the characters and like the plot line with like more of a light touch, I think, than with like Pride and Prejudice and other Jane Austen novels, especially I guess like Emma. I mean Northanger Abbey I think is comparable, but they're doing like different things. I did talk about this when I talked about this before, but anyway, I just think it's a really nice summery book, and I guess part of it is because I associate it with like the time I read it, which was like July or something, and it just felt like very like good for the hot summer days and, you know, just having fun reading, going in a lake and things like that. But I do think it has a good quality of summerness to it, of like not taking things too seriously, but like also kind of searching out joy, which hopefully is what people's summer is like. I don't know. Cool. Gosh, I didn't think at all about tagging anybody, but if you do want to do this, then I will tag you. I'm gonna tag Butch Poetics. I don't think they will make a video, but they might. Yeah, I can't think of anybody else to tag, so I'm just gonna leave it here. And yeah, but I hope you have a nice day, and let me know about your thoughts about the album or any of the books I mentioned, and I will talk to you when I next talk to you. Bye!